FYI, one of my neighbors I told about that we needed a historic preservation commissioner a while back because he's really interested in history, and apparently he's working on his application this afternoon. I'm going to submit it.
Yay!
It's
Good job, Miriam.
June Pemberton's husband. June is our postmistress, and it's her husband, Jim. So apparently he had gone on some walking tour, and another historical walking tour in another city someplace, and thought it was the coolest thing ever. So hopefully he'll be interested in helping in this one.
Yay. Hello, Tongi. You're on mute.
I was saying great, such amazing things. You're on mute was supposed to be the quote from 2020, but it appears that it's also the quote for 2021.
Are we right? Okay. Madam Chair, we're ready to proceed.
All right. I'm going to call this meeting to order on Friday, the 22nd, 2021. This is a work session, and we will begin. May we start with the Pledge of Allegiance?
You don't have to do the pledge for a work session.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brenda. Madam Clerk, can you please take the roll call?
Ward,
Here.
Benoit,
Here.
Lebrecq,
Here.
and Wilkers. And you can see if he's on the phone, right? Okay. Chair Cease.
Here.
Chair Cease, you have a quorum?
Thank you. Do we have any citizen comments?
I do not have any pre-submitted comments, and there's no online comments.
Okay. We don't do an approve agenda, consent agenda, or do we?
No, this is just a work session.
Right. Okay. So this is a work session to work on the CLG, and I'm going to pass it to Mary Ann to begin with. Commissioner Benoit.
Okay. Well, I submitted this initial list, priority list of sign sites. So the bottom line is what I did is I took all the people that had responded, yes, we'd like to be in the tour and have a sign, or at least be on the tour, and I put them all on this list. And then I applied the criteria that we developed and voted on last time to it. And then I scored everything and initially ranked them from highest to lowest on this list. And I put the funding, a tentative funding line on the list based on the fact that we thought we could get 25 signs potentially from this grant. So I just went down under 25 and put the funding line there. I did check with Tanvi last night. We talked about the budget a little bit, how much we thought each sign would cost, which is on average about $500. So it looked like this funding line is in the correct place. And I also, on here, if you see, I show under the commissioner assigned the list currently of who was originally assigned to each of these sites, and that was just kind of one of our first sessions when we were prioritizing. We were just trying to put a name to each property to make sure that everything was covered, so then when people responded, we'd have somebody that could get back to them. I just wanted to note that in scoring these things out, there is some information that is missing on some properties, because some of our criteria includes, does it have an interesting history, or did the person who lived there, or is the building significant to Seward's history? In some cases, we just don't know that right now, And we're not going to know it until we start working with the property owners and researching. So because there's some information missing, in the future, once we get it, maybe these properties would rank higher, but we can only work with what we have. So I'm just, letting you know that that's part of the situation here. So what I was hoping we could do today, which is my proposal, is one, we could look at this list and see if there's any changes we think need to be made. So for example, just besides scoring these out, using our common sense and knowledge about the history of Seward to see if there's anything in particular, like maybe certain signs that would make sense to wait until round 2 when we ask for another grant, because it doesn't spatially work with the rest. So as an example of what I mean, Woodlawn Cemetery came up above the funding line, but it's like the only one that's not in walking distance of everything else, so it might be worth considering moving that to round 2, and maybe at that point we'll have some other ones that are, ones you'd have to drive to. So it's just something to consider. Tom, for example, said, well, hey, I'm willing to wait to have a sign for this other property I have, because I already have the cable house, so I'll wait and put mine on round 2, And a third thing to consider with that is how things spatially line up. So, for example, if there's one property on First Avenue and 20 properties on Second Avenue, you might want to figure out how we can adjust things a little bit so when people start off on the walking tour, it makes more sense as they're walking around. So those are just some considerations for the first thing. The second thing I'm hoping we can do is to look at these assignments, like the 2 commissioners, and try to rebalance that, because right now, Sue and I are basically, carrying the lion's share of everything. We would like to try to balance that out a little bit more, so I'm hoping we can do that. And the third thing I wanted to say about this is I was thinking that this list is semi-fluid right now. I'm hoping that what we could do is we could consider this as a pretty good list, and that when we have our next official meeting that we can vote on a final list. And in the next couple weeks between now and then, if we get more information, we can adjust some things. If anybody submits a letter, maybe they were a little bit late, but they're an important property, like Blaine House, for example, if we, have an opportunity to get them on the list, and then we finalize our list at our next meeting and we vote on it. So we can say, that's the final list. And we can send letters out to people and say, yay, you're on the list to get a sign, or you're on the list to be on the walking tour, but you're below the funding line, so you'll just have to wait till the next grant to get a sign, but you're still on the walking tour, just to let people know what's happening, so nobody's wondering. And that way it's the final list, so we know what to work on too. But I think in the meantime, we could use this list to get going, because the things in the top 15 or so aren't going to probably change. They're, the things that ranked really much higher are probably not going to end up below the funding line. So we can say, the people who are working on them, go for it, talk to the people, start collecting your information, start working so that we can make progress. And, for example, I've been doing that myself in 5 or 6 of these things that are assigned to me. I'm already working on that stuff, and I think Sue is also. So, like I said, that's kind of how the list was made. Those are, the caveats of things that are missing. The proposal is to look at the list to see if we have any changes for any specific reason, to maybe reassign or rebalance the workload, and basically to see if you guys agree that we consider this a semi-final document to go forward and work on this and vote to make it final at our next meeting. Oh, one other thing, as far as looking at considering the spatial arrangements, Tondi has developed kind of this little graphic that shows, here's all the properties that accepted that are on Second Avenue. Here's the ones that accepted on Fourth Avenue, things like that. So we can actually kind of look. It'll help us see how things are arranged. When we get to that, he can show us that. So that's basically what this is about and what I was hoping we could do.
Sounds good. Well, I would like to see us go ahead right now and go through the commissioner assignments.
Chair,
So, pardon me?
sorry, Chair Cease, it's Brenda. Can I don't want to sideline your conversation here or your work session, but can I just ask a few questions and maybe try and help? I'm trying to watch over the legislative history of the work that you guys are doing and with this grant project. And I would love to be able to help get some of the work that it appears you guys have already accomplished in the books as far as, you know, approved, finalized, and you're done. So one of the items that I think we could formalize a little bit is the scoring criteria. If we could bring that before the commission in the form of a resolution. I would love to put that on the books that this is the document that you are approved for this project to quantify and qualify any property using this scoring criteria. And then I would like to formalize your sign design, because I think you all have made decisions about this, but I don't have legislative history to identify it all and document it. Am I making sense, or am I confusing you?
Commissioner Ward.
Brenda, I think we, correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, we did vote on the criteria for selection. So what we need to do, maybe for the February meeting, is put that in the form of a resolution. But we did do a formal vote, but I think it sounds, what you need a little bit more, Brenda, correct?
Well, you know, if you've done that, I'll go dig into the minutes and see how it's documented. And then maybe I'll be able to come back with something a little bit more. I think I just, it's such a big project, and we just want to make sure that 10 years, 20 years from now, when we look back, we can follow the trail of the work that's been done here. Does that make sense?
Lost the window.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and I'm just sort of, I don't want to insert myself into this project, but I just am keeping in mind the way we progress with projects with city council, and I just want you all to have that kind of documentation flow as well.
Commissioner Ward?
I believe it was the January meeting, we did formally vote on Mary Ann's. So just to cut to the chase, the minutes should reflect that. And if you need something further, I'm sure we can write something and have it ready for the February if you need something more formal. But it was, I believe, real recent. It was the last meeting.
Okay, super.
Commissioner Benoit?
Yes, at the last meeting, in the notes of the information I submitted, it had all the criteria laid out. And then as in our discussion, I said, okay, since the time I wrote this and submitted it, I feel like there's one adjustment I'd like to make, which was the addition of plus special criteria to one of the items, and that's what we voted on. So it should be very clear
Okay.
in the notes and with the vote exactly what we did.
Okay.
Commissioner LeBrecq?
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that we want to make sure that we memorialize everything as we need to, and I believe that we did do that, like you said, via a vote, via a public meeting. So my only concern, as I am trying to narrow down the timeline for us to get this project done on time and be on track, is that we're going backwards to stuff. Backwards to putting a resolution out for February. We don't need to take any more steps back. If it's just paperwork, clerk, then I totally understand that. And if it's just paperwork that we need to do to be in compliance, and we want to be. But anyone can watch any of these recordings and see exactly what was done. Everyone was invited to these meetings. They were pre-noticed and everything else. We really need to keep moving forward. I see the tremendous amount of work that is being put in by commissioners on being able to take what has become a hugely well-responsive to project. We have a full slate of people who are ready for us to get working and start putting some narrative and stuff on paper. And we are fully respecting the fact that there's a process that should be followed. We have a grant that we're following. We have a recommended list that has been developed using the criteria that we already voted on. And other than putting a final stamp on that and saying this is the list that we are agreeing to for this first round of whatever this grant is, that's it. We just can't take any more steps backward. We don't have the time to do that. So I am concerned that would just create more debate. Will we put down a thing and we're putting a resolution? No, we're not putting a resolution down in February to say that we're doing something in February. It's done. It's been done. It's done. So we need to move forward with moving along on this timeline. We can't move along this timeline with you revisiting stuff that we already did. So, with all due respect.
Thank you, Commissioner LeBrecq. Commissioner Ward?
I was simply, if that's simply something Brenda needed, then that would be something we could, I would be happy to put together a resolution if that helped Brenda, not to step us backwards. I don't believe that was the intent. So in that interest, let's keep going unless Brenda needs something else.
No, I'm good.
Thank you. We do have a limit of 1 hour for these work sessions. So I would like us to come to the commissioner signed, and I'm just going to go ahead and pick up what I've marked based on people I know. So the Mount Marathon, the city Mount Marathon diversion dam, I'm volunteering for. The Phoebe, I'm volunteering for. The Woodland Cemetery, which may or may not be something we want to research at this time. Let's see, I'm more than willing to work with Marianne on the Founders Landing site and Tides Inn. I know the owners. And the Lowell Creek Flume, I'd like to take on. Standard Oil Managers Home, I would like to take on. And the Mount Marathon 4th of July, I would like to take on, as that will be across from the diversion dam. And depending on how this all breaks out, I can take on more. Okay, Commissioner Benoit.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. Just a couple comments. The Standard Oil Manager's House, I've already kind of started, coordinated with them.
Okay.
I'm kind of halfway through, so I feel like I've got that, but I might check in with you to see what you know, in case there's some stuff that you don't know that I don't have yet.
All right.
The other thing is maybe we could work together on the Tides Inn, because I've kind of started that one also.
Okay. All right.
The Woodlawn Cemetery, I think that would be helpful. That was one that we were going to ask Lee Plesky about. That's one of the reasons we sent him, because he's been doing those tours. So maybe we could check first and see if he's interested and then kind of collaborate with him on that. And otherwise, that is super duper helpful.
Well, it looks...
Thank you.
On two, I am, well, maybe three. I'm working with you on that, and you may have already done quite a bit of work. So we'll just have to go through this and see where else I pick up. I would like to make a comment, if I may. I don't believe we should be doing properties are beyond 1942 on this run. So Casa Grande House on I guess, GA House, 225 Second, 1955 is well beyond that. So I would like to see that taken off the list. But of course, we need to vote on them at the next regular meeting. Commissioner Ward.
I was just going to go through what I'd already done. C-Beam was on my list. I'm happy to relinquish it, but I do have some contact information I can give you. I've tried to contact them and haven't gotten a lot of response back after the first email, so maybe they're on vacation or something. But I've already approached Brown and Hawkins. I've already approached St. Pete's. I've already talked to Judy and Jan about the train depot. I'm just going through, and I'm happy to take anything on 2nd Avenue, simply because they're my neighbors. I've also done the Brownell House, Homebrew Alley. I've already talked to Randy, and I've already talked to Doug White at the 1904 First Avenue house. And so I don't know what else. I've got a couple of purple house with white with green trim, purple house. Those are all on 2nd Avenue. I have not heard or have any contact information for those guys, but I can walk and knock on their door. But I think they're rentals, so I need to talk to the owner.
Hold on, Tony. Commissioner
Yes.
Benoit? Commissioner Benoit?
I was just going to say, some of the ones that I've done are, well, it's been helping Sue with her house. We started narrowing.
Yeah, my house is, yeah.
We found some more information, so now we're kind of working it. I have been working on the Mike Malloy house and actually made quite a bit of progress on that. If anyone has any information on that they know, I could certainly use whatever you know. I have been working on the Alaska Point of View Quonset huts on 6th Avenue. We've done a bunch of research and interviews and stuff like that already. I have just kind of started initiating the conversation on the ties-in. I've already reached out and had a long discussion with Doug Capra about the Resurrect Dark Coffee House. And we've shaped the narrative of what we're going to talk about. And he's going to kind of start developing that first narrative before that one. And that's really all he has time to work on, except he's happy to talk to any of us about any of the property you want to brainstorm with him, get ideas, background, etc. The Standard Oil Manager's house, I've talked to those people a couple of times. I started researching that. I have some information. The Keating home is something I just started on there at 6th Avenue. I just had an initial email conversation with them, and they don't know very much about it, and I don't know very much so far either. So if anyone has any information on that, like I don't know, Cheryl, if you know that, that's like really close to where you live on 6th Avenue, that would be something that would be nice to have some help on. Stewart Community Library and Museum, Valerie, I've already talked to Valerie, and she's going to be working with the partners for the library and museum to work on that. And then I'm trying to work on, I've initiated trying to get the okay for us to put a sign at Kawabi Park on city property to do something about the 4th Avenue Business District. So still kind of working with them to find out if we definitely have permission. So at that point, maybe use some help on that one. Sure.
May I interrupt, please?
Sure.
Commissioner LeBrecq?
I can hold. I'll keep talking. I wanted to comment about another property, but I'll hold.
Commissioner Ward?
So I mean, I wasn't doing a list. I was just going through the list that I'd already started. But Commissioner Cease, if you could help with the C-Beam. We also have the Orlander building. Could you help? I mean, we've got, you took a tour with us. It's just a matter of contacting Todd, and I think he would be very eager. So those would take 2 off my list that I haven't started yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then, like I say, I will keep all the Second Avenue houses, but I think some of those are rentals. So I know that Purple House on the corner is a rental, so I need the name of the owner so I can contact them. And I know Matt and Karen, so I know some of the owners. I know Al and Nicole Plan, and I'm happy to walk across the street and deal with them. But there are a couple that are rentals, and I don't have any contact information for them. But other than that, I've already pretty much started what's left on the list. So I'm happy if you take those two, the lead on those two, Cheryl, then I'm happy with the list that I have.
All right.
Which one is Cheryl taking the lead on?
Seabean and Orlander.
Okay.
And I keep in touch with Todd Lance, who owns the Orlander building. So, I'd be happy to either contact him and refer him to you, or you can contact him directly with the information that I have. He will be thrilled.
Thank you. Commissioner Breck?
I was going to say that I have information on those couple houses, Sue, that are on Second. It's Laura, I'll get with you, but that's Laura Erickson, who's a former commissioner.
Okay, and if, yeah.
The two houses, the one with the yellow and the purple trim and the green trim. Anyway,
Yes.
yeah, I've already talked to her.
Yeah, and what I have is addresses in Anchorage, but nothing else.
I got a cell phone number for you.
Yeah, and that's what I need, something more direct, and I will contact them.
And cell phone number, she also mentioned, I even talked to her, I said maybe it's time for her to step back from the commission at one point, since she was a commissioner for a long time, was involved in the preservation plan. And she said, maybe twist her arm a little bit more, but she's obviously passionate about it, and she does have 2 homes. I'll get you her cell phone number.
Yeah, just ship it to me. Thank you.
I'll do it. Also wanted to mention that I had got very good success with Van Gilder, and they're on board, absolutely 110%. In fact, he mentioned that if we needed at some point to do some kind of a fundraising effort or something, that he'd be happy to help with that. It became part of what we did. He also has Chattermark, of course, and he has a few other properties. He knows those are not in consideration right now, that our interest is based on where we are with our budget. It is in the Van Gilder, and he's 100% on board with that. So good. That was kind of a big deal. I have a few other properties too, but I'm hearing some things shift. So Mary Ann, you can put on me what you need to put on me, and I will help where I can help. But it sounds like some things have shifted. I of course have the Slipman House too, and I've already had contact with her, and I'll be working with Leona on that. Those are 2 of my main ones, but of course I have a few others that I'm working on as well too, and I'll update that information, and or you can assign them to me.
Well, right now you have the Swetman House, the Van Gilder, you have the Hale House, which is on Millionaire Road.
Yep.
Another house, 417 3rd, which is a Millionaire Road.
Yep. Fine with my current list, but happy to take on more as I need to. But those are a couple of the proposals.
I think at the moment that this polls are still, so I think what we could do is we could kind of just like regroup and try to figure out where we're at, and if anyone feels like you still have too much, we could see if we could get you to help or assign, give you something.
Happy to do it.
I'm comfortable with what I have. Thank you, Cheryl, for helping.
Yes, thank you, Cheryl. That's awesome. We're having fun. It's like a big super duper treasure hunt, so hopefully you'll enjoy it too.
Okay, good. Any comments about removing the 1955?
Which house was that?
It's a Casa Grande house, 225 Second. You're listed as the commissioner on it.
Yeah, further down the street. I didn't think that was on the list. Sorry, I'm missing it.
It's below the funding line. But I think there's like some questions of like exactly how old that place is.
Can you explain?
Commissioner?
Just a quick question, Marion. Can you explain a little bit about below the funding line? So we know that the funding line has to do with how many signs we think we can achieve, which was our original 25, and it sounds like we'll be okay cost-wise for that. But funding line typically comes in not because we necessarily made a judgment call or the scoring. It comes in that they came in after we'd already received the however many of the project. Is that correct?
This funding line I just developed by going, I just said, okay, 25 signs are above the funding line. Anything below is below the funding line. If we were going to change something, like say, for example, not have like Woodlawn Cemetery until next time, then we can adjust it. But I believe these are just 25 above the line. All of them.
So basically, at some point, as we're continuing to have things trickle in, for example, we may get some great examples of people who are getting back to us, but they might get back to us 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now. But we've already selected. I think when we're addressing that, we're looking at the projects that have been submitted to us and or that have come up within the criteria, and then saying we've hit our max at 25, and that's why the others are falling below the funding line, right? Because they came in late in the game.
I kind of lost you there for a minute. Could you just repeat that?
I said those came in late in the game. That's why they're below the funding line.
No, it came in, they're below the funding line because they scored and they ranked low.
Because of the scoring and the ranking. So we use our established scoring criteria.
Yes.
And based on that, you pick the 25 that are the most relevant. Okay.
Yeah, I just picked the 25 with the highest score.
Okay. I wanted to make
Right,
sure that that was clarification.
So where on this list is the below the funding line? Where is the line that ends?
It's that big red line that goes across, and it's right below the city, Guabi Park.
City, Wabi Park.
And also, like, if you look at the funding line below that, for example, it's the McMullen Building, which is on 4th Avenue. Those folks said that they would pay, I believe they talked to you, Tommy, I believe they said they would pay for their own sign. Some other people said that too, but if they're above the funding line, I don't think we should ask them to do that. I just think if people are below the funding line and they're willing to pay because they want their sign sooner than later, then that, we should accept that and add them to the list. So if he still wanted to do that, even though he's below the funding line, we could maybe add that one on. In which case, he's assigned to you. It's under your name, Tangi.
So I feel like an idiot. I can't find, I know I read it. Okay. So on mine, it's a big black one. Okay, so this is quite a few below. Okay.
Yeah, that ended up below because, for one thing, it isn't, the older a property was, the more points it would get. So in 1955, if that date is correct, it doesn't get as many points as something that's like 1905. And actually, there's two. Ruthie had two things here. I made one mistake. Her real estate office, I believe she just wanted it on the tour, but she didn't necessarily want a sign, so it really shouldn't be on this particular list. But I think she did want a sign for her house, and that's the one that's 1955.
Only if we
It's
can
below-
prove the
below
date.
the funding line.
So I see that, unhappily, the Lowell Creek Flume is below the funding line. And we've already got a question on the City Woodland Cemetery. We know that it's valuable, but we don't know how it's going to fit into this walking tour at this point because it's way out of the way. So I would like to swap Lowell Creek Flume for that because I think it's majorly important. It allowed the town to survive annual flooding down Jefferson. Yes, Commissioner LeBrecq.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted.
I was saying I was waiting till you were through talking. I was just putting my hand up for my turn.
Oh, okay.
Are you finished?
Go ahead.
I was merely going to say that I'm perfectly okay to do some swaps and so on. The bottom line of the walking tour does not mean that people can't be on the walking tour. The challenge is that who can have a sign this first go round. And our goal and what we have signed up for and what we've said we're doing is we're creating a tour where, say, if you drop somebody off at the library or at the Sea Life Center or Kalani Park, wherever it was, and they came to town and they wanted to get some sense of our history, that they're going to be able to do a walking tour that is going to be interesting to them. So that's why we have the scoring criteria and so on. It's like, how old is the house? How interesting is it? How much of a story do we have? And so on. It does not mean that there's not historical value. So no one should take it that anything that's on this list does not have historical value. It's just the fact that we're trying to work within the budget and come up with the most interesting tour that we can with 25 signs. The amazing thing of it is that we've had such amazing response to this. I just said amazing twice. We've had such amazing response to this that we're finding out that there really is a tremendous amount of Stewart history to showcase. We just might not be able to do it all with signs this time. That does not mean that they can't be on the tour. It does not mean that they aren't historically significant. It just means that we have to have a criteria of some kind, right? So we voted on a criteria. We came up with that. We certainly, as commissioners, can make a decision to change those things. But I just want to be clear, it's not that things aren't historically significant. Any of these things we're talking about.
Right. Mr. Benoit?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate with that. All these people that want to be on the tour will get on the tour. And everyone that wants to get a sign, I think will get a sign. We just have to ask for more money after this batch runs out and just get some more. So really what we're saying is you just have to wait a little longer if you're below the funding line until we get some more money, because I hope that we will continue with this project. It should be easy enough to get a future grant, especially if we have a list of properties and say, look, these people already want signs, and they fit in, and we've already scored them out or ranked them as far as historical value, et cetera. So I just want, to be clear that when we're talking to people in our letter and in person, it's not like they don't rank out and they're not going to get one. That they will in the future. It's just kind of like a waiting list, is the way I see it.
Commissioner Ward?
I was just going to say that I think it's in the best interest of us and our ability to explain why we made choices to the public that we stick with our criteria. We don't change a position on like, for example, 1965. We don't arbitrarily decide that because of one issue. The other thing that Mary Ann did, or Commissioner Benoit did that was very clever, is in the second point, I believe, of our criteria, we could make some judgment calls, but we have to justify those judgment calls. So if the Mount Marathon or the diversion dam, we decide, even though it didn't rank real high in the criteria, because of the way Mary Ann wrote those, is that we can put that up higher in the list because we think that's important to the history. Does that make sense? And the other thing that I would say is I would not be real happy about removing a property just due to a date, because we have found most of those dates are incorrect. But because Mary Ann, because of that, remember that change you made, Mary Ann? That's why you can include the Woodlawn Cemetery. That's why we can move the diversion dam, we can move Mount Marathon up higher in the list because of the way you wrote the criteria. But we have to use that criteria so that we come across as being very neutral with regards to every property.
Do you have copies of all the letters?
Commissioner Benoit?
People asking me.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, that instead of saying something like, let's just switch these, like Woodlawn Cemetery for the flume, it doesn't really work with the rest of our criteria. But what I do see that's reasonable is to say the flume is related to, and it's kind of a part of the history of the diversion dam. the diversion dam is actually on the National Register of Historic Places. So it ranked way up there, but the flume itself didn't rank because it's not listed. But I can see that it's associated. They're part of the same thing. One of the reasons that one went on the National Register is because the flume didn't work, and so they had to do something. So they're connected. So I could see that you could say for that one, you could go, we're going to give it points under this special consideration category because these are related to, it's important for that reason. And then it will score higher, so it'll probably end up above the funding line. But it'll end up in order where it kind of ranks in relation to the other ones, rather than being just swapped. So I agree, because I was thinking that one should kind of rank higher too, but because of our criteria, there's some things that's just the way it turns out. So,
Ms. Kingsland?
Thank you. I just wanted to just quickly kind of reiterate what I think that the city clerk was requesting is that I was off at your last meeting and I didn't have a chance to go back in to review your meeting. Usually I like to listen in to the meeting so that I can keep track of where we're at in the grant project. So I do have some catching up to do there, and wasn't aware that you had voted and approved the criteria list. What I would like to see is that criteria list be in written form and added to a packet, not as a lay down, and also see the list of the properties, also not as a lay down, but included in the packet so that the public has very quick and easy access to that. And it's a very formal part of our legislative history, so that it can go back. And I think that could probably be useful in order to go back and to see, so this is the criteria that not only that you're using to make your decisions, but also for those property owners and for the public to see exactly what that criteria and what the list of the properties are, and your funding line for which ones you currently have funding to do the signage for as well. Is that helpful and reasonable?
Most of it. Madam Clerk, did you have something that you wanted to say?
Oh, I was just hoping at some point to get copies of the letters that people have turned in asking to be part of this, and what was the other thing? Like, I don't know if you had an application that you asked them to fill out, or just email you that they wanted to take part in this, or whatever. I just was hoping for copies of all that. I don't know who's keeping track of that.
Commissioner Benoit?
as far as the criteria for voting, that was put in a packet. It was not a lay down. It was all in writing, and it was voted on. This list of the priority sites based on the ranking system was put in the packet for this meeting. It was not a lay down. So I feel like we've met, the criteria that you want. As far as the list of people, what they were asked to do in the letter was they didn't get an application, they just got a letter inviting them, and they were asked to contact Tomby by writing or phone to let him know if they were interested, and so he has kept track of all those emails. So that's how we're tracking that. Does that answer your question, Valerie?
So are they also signing some sort of an agreement, or do you have some way to document, that they're a part of that project? Even if it's just the email, I think if we just make sure that we have that somewhere, not just for the grant report, because that's also that's the other part that I think about. In order for the I have to do a quarterly report, which I plan to do February, and then in the final report in the end of June and in July is when I plan to start working on those. But I imagine those are the kind of documentations that the SHPO would like to see.
Well, one of the things that they do have to sign is for every single sign, whether it's on private property or city property, they have to sign a sign permit. which they have to state, I'm the owner, I agree, I understand this is on my property, I have to take care of it, etc. So I'm working with the city right now, they're developing this permit that will send out and get signatures from every property owner. So it seems to me that would be a very good way to have a list of all the people because they've signed their name saying, yeah, I know, I'm aware I'm getting a sign and I'm responsible. So can we use that when we get that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And it might be a good idea to actually have that as part of a packet as well, so that it's part of the Commission's legislative history as well.
Commissioner Ward?
I think that's probably a fairly reasonable request. Just as vice chair, and what Cheryl and I have discussed as a process forward is to have a final formal vote on the 25 properties in February. That's what our target was. And I think after the February meeting, Valerie and Brenda both, we will have more of the kinds of things you're looking for. Does that make sense? In trying to make it formal, but this is a little bit premature because we're just in the process of moving towards that formal vote.
Yeah, that's great.
And
I mean,
work
yes.
session.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Right, and I mean, yeah, no, I think we do need to document and we need a formal vote. I've been saying that the commission is the final say, and all of that has to be done in a formal manner in the commission process. And I believe Cheryl and I discussed it, that February, Mary Ann was going to have a resolution by February from the committee, and some of the things that you're looking for hopefully will be in place by February and will be part of the public record.
That's super. Thank you.
Does that seem reasonable to you guys?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on doing a resolution. I was planning on submitting a proposal to vote on a final list.
Yeah, I want to clarify with Commissioner Benoit. She is going to do a resolution.
Right. Sorry, wrong term.
Right.
Wrong term.
Okay. So are we done with the, legislative stuff and the clerk stuff? Because this is a work session for us to, work on our grant, and we agreed to 1 hour for a weekly work session.
Okay. Are we done with that topic? Yes.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kingsland.
What was next on the agenda?
Well, I wanted to follow up because Cheryl Cease basically said this idea about trying to, do special consideration for the flume and see if it would rank above the funding line, and then Woodlawn Cemetery maybe could drop down. Do you want me to do that?
If we did the flume, it would be maybe just the pre-diversion dam to be tied into two, or not at all at this point, and maybe not at all, period. I misinterpreted. I thought we were removing the diversion dam to below the funding line. Yep. So. Is that right?
I'm trying to see it. I'm not even sure if it's below the funding line now.
Well, the flume is funding line, but not the diversion dam.
Right. And if it got some extra points for special considerations because it's kind of related, like attached to the diversion dam, it may end up above the funding line. What would end up happening then is probably the things close to the funding line, like the Quabi Park, might end up below the funding line. But it's good to have this discussion because there are some things, above the funding line, like say Deborah Hoffmeister's house on First Avenue. She has no history on that, so I have no idea if there's any significance to that other than the fact it's an older house, whereas the Flume, for example, does have some importance to it. And so just because of the way our scoring system is and what we have information on, sometimes things rank up a little higher than maybe like you look at it and go, well, I don't know if that really makes sense. And that's why I wanted to have this discussion, because we can still, we have a ranking system, but we can still use common sense.
And in your ranking system, I believe you had one sentence that would work as a clause that we had the freedom to adjust.
We can give special consideration. And if it gets special consideration, we just have to say what that is, and then it gets, like 4 points or something.
Okay. Commissioner Ward?
And I just want that done by February so we have a vote. Once I think that was probably the brilliance of adding that, Commissioner Benoit, that was the brilliance of adding that change to what we voted on in January. But I would like to have it solidified by February so we could begin the process of installation and design.
So I guess my question is, do I have your permission? Does everyone agree we should add special consideration points to the Flume and see where it ends up?
So, from my point of view, because it's the first attempt to fix Lowell Creek from flooding town, it didn't work. It really should be a part of the diversion dam. It shouldn't be a separate.
Okay.
Commissioner Ward?
Cheryl, since that was assigned to you, why don't you kind of look at the situation, come up with a recommendation, and we can make that decision. Make your you're the commissioner assigned to that, so give it back once you've decided, you've looked all the points, then you would give it to the committee via Mary Ann. The committee will look at it and make a recommendation to HP.
Okay.
All right? You're the commissioner assigned. On my houses, what I will do is look at what I can find and make recommendations back to the committee so that we have a final selection for February. But go through the committee and through the process so that we can do a legitimate vote, and that meets the criteria that we are open to the public and public input. Okay? But use the system we have put in place.
Commissioner Benoit?
Just another thought I had is the diversion dam sign would be up there close to the diversion dam. The idea for this Flume sign would be down near, on city property, down near the corner of Jefferson and Blaine. So at the bottom of the hill. Be like looking up, and we could talk, there's old pictures so they're two separate points of view in two separate places. But if we really wanted to, and we could always say, up there where the diversion dam is, we could talk about the Flume and have some pictures and not have a second sign. So that's another option if we want.
Give it to the commissioner assigned.
Okay. Mary Ann, have we covered the 3 points you wanted to cover?
Looks like we have looked at the list, well, basically to see if there's any changes besides this one that you mentioned as far as the diversion dam. Did anyone else have any changes they thought were important to consider? I mean, for example, does everyone feel like we should just leave Woodlawn Cemetery where it's at on this list because that's how it ranked, even though it's kind of separated in space?
So it isn't, it definitely ranks, and it's appropriate that it ranks to where it is, but it's probably not going to be something that we put on the actual walking tour because it's like way out, at least not this version. So we might want to think about pulling that off for this round, but like Sue said, we focus on the properties that we're in charge of, and we submit it to the committee. If we want to make changes, we submit that and we explain why. And then at the regular meeting, we vote.
We have a couple of more work sessions before that final vote. So whoever is assigned to Woodlawn Cemetery should bring I know nothing, so I can't make a decision right now, even at this work session. So whoever's assigned to that, bring us the pros and cons, and we can decide at the next work session, so that when we come to a final vote, we have in fact got the properties we feel comfortable with.
And that
We're
was
not gonna
basically
solve it here.
Cheryl, because I was going to ask Lee, and I haven't even talked to him yet, but
Right.
you said that you were interested in that one, so.
Yeah.
So bring a recommendation.
Speaking of a couple of work sessions, we chose Fridays because that was the only day that Commissioner Furlong could meet. So are we okay with remaining on a Friday, or do we want to switch back to like Wednesday at 4 or something?
I forgot when I said that that was a good day for me, that I actually do have something from 6:30 to 7:30 of a class. I think Friday's okay for me, although I prefer instead of from 11 to 12, if we could do like 10:45 to 11:45, because I have another meeting that starts in 3 minutes. So
Okay.
by the time I get off of this and sign in, I'm ending up being late, so just gives a little buffer.
I'll say that it's fine for me because even though it does cut into the work day, it does get us kind of focused on things we can catch up on, at least myself speaking, over the course of the weekend. So
And I'm
open.
fine with it. Either way.
I'm
good.
open. The only challenge that I brought up is it being midday. Is by 11 o'clock, I'm already 4 hours into my work day and things come up. So, but I'll certainly work with everyone if that's the date that works. I like the afternoon meetings to some degree, but I'm flexible with everybody's schedule for now.
And I'll just say
Okay.
that I may not be able to make all of these until the CLG is done, simply because Fridays are the days that we try, if we have medical, to go to Anchorage.
And you have one coming up.
Yes, but I do. Oh, right, so I cannot make next Friday's meeting.
So do we want to switch today?
I'm happy to run the meeting. I'm happy to run the meetings in
We
Cheryl's
need a
absence,
quorum.
but we may not have a quorum.
Correct. Fred cannot do daytime.
Or we could, I could do Wednesdays like after 7:30.
Okay, does that work for you, Tongi?
Let me look. As far as I know, Wednesday after 7:30 should be
Like say 7:45 to 8:45.
PM, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That would be
Yeah,
fine
that's the
by
morning
me.
thing.
That'd be fine by me. We can always modify, but for next week, it's great.
Okay. Ms. Kingsland?
And if you let me know, if you have questions for me, or if you need some information from me, if you let me know in advance, I can probably make the work sessions as well.
Oh, well, okay, thank you.
Yeah, so let me know if you ever want me to attend. I try to listen in and to stay up on it, but if there's something specific that you need from me, please don't hesitate.
Great, thank
All
you.
right.
We really appreciate your help on working on your sign, or the library museum sign.
Mine's not showing.
Madam Clerk?
Is that, next Wednesday at 7:30? What was the time?
7:45 to 8:45.
Okay, we're just, can you give us just
Oh,
one more
boy.
sec? We're trying to confirm that there's not a work session that night for city council.
I just thought about what to the staff. These guys work from 8 to 5, you guys, and then to ask them to come back like this is pretty tough. Any way we can do it at 4, 3,
I can do it anytime.
okay?
I'm flexible, but Wednesday is pretty good. 4 o'clock on a Wednesday would probably be fine for me. I do have a 3:30 to 4:30, so I couldn't meet until right 4:30, 4:45. 5 is better, yeah.
Okay, you have classes.
4 to 5.
Okay, Tuesday. Where are we at on Tuesday?
Tuesday's fine for me.
I've got time open, say, between 2 to 3:30, but I have classes and stuff before and after that most days of the week.
Okay, 2 to 3:30. So 2:15 to 3:15 on Tuesdays?
But next week.
No?
I'm flexible, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm always going to be able to be here. And once you're in 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I might be on phone call with a staff member. It's a little tough. I will do whatever I need to do, but are Thursdays not working either for anyone?
Thursdays I can
Well,
do,
Okay.
say between 5 and 6, or I can do between, say, 1 and 3.
Ooh, 5 and 6 is beautiful for me.
And actually, I have a class that ends right at 5, so, 5:15, 6:15.
Works for me.
I'm available.
It works great for me.
Okay. I can't be next Thursday. I have to get Gary up. Wednesday night is pre-op. Thursday.
Can I ask a general question?
Yeah.
We need a quorum to be able to make any vote, but we're not voting at these meetings.
You have to have a quorum at a work session as well.
Could it be a committee meeting then otherwise, or no, because then we can't ever have 4 people? Right.
Well, you'd only have 3, wouldn't you?
Well, the good news is we may have another commissioner, but we'd have to see when he's available. But thank you, Mary Ann, for recruiting, and hopefully you'll fill out that form. And
You guys, I say, the only reason I have any hesitation at all is because I don't want to mess up the quorum. So
Right.
I'm more than happy for you to pick whatever time you want, and I'll give it a 99.99% chance that I could be there. But if I get stuck with the work thing, then we mess up the quorum. That's my concern. Whereas if we pick it in the afternoon, I have no issue.
Right, and I appreciate that. Your committee idea will work for next Thursday because there's 3 of you, as long as Mary Ann, you, and Sue, Commissioner Ward, Commissioner LeBrecq, Commissioner Benoit can meet, but no more commissioners, you're okay. And that way staff doesn't have to be there.
But I think it's important for you to be at the next one because you're going to be making some recommendations that are going to
That's true.
Inform what's going to happen before.
I can't do Thursday.
And,
Right.
So let me ask a question. If we have a meeting of 4 people and we special notice it or whatever we notice it, and only 3 people come and we have no quorum, does that mean we can't have the meeting? Does that mean we just can't make any decisions?
Correct. No, you can't have the meeting.
Y'all let me know what time will work. I'll block it out.
sadly, I'm very available.
How about Mondays from 5 to 6? No.
Well,
I do that. Sorry.
okay, that's good because our clerk has advised that Mondays are pretty sticky for city council with their work sessions and whatnot. So Mondays are out.
One of the things about committee meetings is, can we even use Zoom to do what we're doing if we're just having a committee meeting?
No. Not with the city. The other thing is you can't just say 3 would be a committee and it would be okay, because if those 3 people are not on the, I don't know if you guys are all in the same committee, if you were assigned to the same committee. Do you know what I'm saying? So if 2 of you are meeting from one committee, or, yeah.
Right. So Mary Ann, Sherry, or Commissioner Benoit, Commissioner Ward, and Commissioner Furlong made up this committee. So Commissioner Furlong is no longer with us. So Commissioner LeBrecq could step in, and then that would be that committee.
Okay.
You do it.
Which committee were we talking
We'll do
about
it.
again? Is this the historic planning?
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
work session.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
How about Thursday nights, 5:30
LeBrecq would
to
be
6:30?
replacing Furlong on that.
Yes.
Okay, then as long as that committee's still limited to 3 and it's you 3, Benoit, Ward, and LeBrecq, yeah, you guys would be okay meeting. It's not gonna be, it wouldn't be on Zoom because it's not a publicly noticed meeting. So you guys would have to
There's
determine
my
your own
state for
way
me.
to do it. Yeah.
Okay, I won't be here next Thursday, so,
I'm already really late for my class. Can
Yeah,
you
why don't you go?
reach out later?
Yep, okay,
Because it seems like we're not able to settle on
Yeah, we're
anything
stuck.
right now.
we're stuck, okay. So,
I would
as chair, I am going to close this meeting, and we can communicate through the clerk as far as what may or may not work for us. All right? Thank you.
Thanks,
quickly
everybody.
keep
Thanks, Marianne.
the Friday meetings are still on force right now, though. The Friday meetings haven't changed.
Well, I'm the chair. The Friday meeting is,
You're not here for this Friday, but we have a whole slate of Friday meetings. So far, we've made no decision, so that has not changed, so we can give direction to staff. So next week, we have a problem with Friday because you're not there. We may change next week, but the weeks after that. Remember, this goes through
yes,
ever.
yes.
That was
Just
something
for
voted
clarity.
on in an actual meeting, yeah.
Right.
Let's let Marianne go.
Yes, bye.
Presently told us she had to go at this time.
Marianne,
This work session is now adjourned.
I'll email
Thank you.
you and I'll talk to you. Give me a call when you have
Okay.
time. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Thank you, Commissioner LeBrecq. Thank you, Commissioner Benoit. Goodbye.